Tell me something. Strong as a bull you are, it's plain to see. You could have stove my head in with that foot of yours, but you went easy on me, didn't you?
I came here for the sake of my father. You have a family. People who expect you to return from this dark business. It is not my place to cause them grief.
He means it, don't he? How this fella survived so long. Wait. He spared my lives. I like the cut of his jib. Sure he's naive, but he's a gentleman through and through, this one. I want to know the name of him who spared me.
Jonathan Joestar.
Well, pleased to make your acquaintance.
In part 1, where I said I was not a Snyderbot whose life is dedicated to hating or worshipping Zack Snyder, I meant it. From my experience of watching Zack Snyder's filmography, my lasting opinion from thinking back to them goes: for Dawn of the Dead, cool. For 300, interesting. For Watchmen, this actually looks like a comic book come to life. For Sucker Punch, I didn't understand what it was supposed to be when I first saw it, but I get the idea by now. For Legend of the Guardians, I have not exactly seen that one. And when it comes to Man of Steel, I have already made a video talking about it. I recently told Fiona Zeng, the face and founder of the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut movement on Twitter, that I consider myself as a moderate Zack Snyder fan, whose appreciation for the man has gradually grown as the years have gone by. And to the rest of the movement, that was enough for them to welcome me to being one of them. On the opposite side of the spectrum, when Angry Joe released his reaction to the first teaser of Zack Snyder's Justice League trailer that was released on February 14th, I decided to go through the comment section and interact with the negative commentators. And their responses were pretty much summarized as, "It's going to suck because we say so." And then there was this guy. The point of this opening is to make clear that while I have been more positive than negative in reviewing Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, I still made the effort in being unbiased, in not taking a side on deciding its quality by choosing which popular opinion to go by. And considering how both of these sides reacted to my interactions with them, it should be self-explanatory why my unbiased take on the film tipped more onto the positive end while still acknowledging the negative parts of it. This is only fair after all the unnecessary negative biases the movie has been thrown at just for the sake of it. The first things I want to go over are the things I found actually negative about the film. Where the first hour was relatively flawless, most of the first problems I had came forward in the second one and the third one also. Here is a quick list of them. Clark not doing any of his assigned reporter stories. Bruce following Anatolic Knizev to the Fight Club to bluejack his phone while using his public real name and not disguised as Matches Malone. Clark not having any spoken dialogue in his first interaction with Luthor. Diana being able to avoid Bruce sneaking up on her at the other museum and return his drive to his car without Bruce catching her. Kahina Ziri not being placed into a protective custody after she came to tell Senator Finch about having been paid to lie about what really happened in Nairobi. Everything with Mercy Graves' death. Luthor not being present in the Capitol building at the very outer rim of the blast zone where he could have been injured so that when treating his wounds he would have required getting his hair being cut off. not showing or suggesting that Clark has trouble seeing through lead before Lois learns that Wallace Keefe's wheelchair was lead-lined and spells out how and why Clark couldn't see the bomb inside it. Ma Kent being captured by Anatoly Knizev's mercenaries before Luthor has seen Batman turning on the bat signal and telling Knizev to take Lois into captivity. Not showing scenes that are happening at the same time, side by side, like in 24. Perry just giving Lois his permission to take a chopper ride to Gotham just because she tells him
It's not her story.
instead of telling him Superman is not at the ship, he is at Gotham, that is why I need a chopper to get there. Clark not trying to talk to Batman about needing his help after throwing him across the old GCPD building's bathroom before charging at him and getting a second blast of kryptonite to the face. Anatoly Knizev being able to hear the Batplane coming from a distance as if Batman had not made his aerial vehicle stealthy. Batman wasting time gut punching a merc who is already down. Lois going to get the spear back alone by herself instead of telling Batman, Wonder Woman or Clark where she hid it for temporary safekeeping. Clark Kent's funeral being an open casket funeral where everyone can see he is dead and not missing in action like in Action Comics issue 692. Not showing any of the people from New Orleans or the flooded town at Superman's monument mourning over him. And the editing of the film's final moments, because showing Batman confronting Luthor could have been better shown before the funeral. On the negative side, I also feel the need to address how Chris Terrio being called to rewrite David Goyer's original script. The focal point of the switch between writers might be best designated at the Capitol bombing, as it literally throws away almost everything that was built up before it. Some things are salvaged and picked up on, so Terrio did probably acknowledge what Goyer had written before making his changes. Still, David Goyer's original draft with Scoot McNairy's Wallace Keefe as Metallo could possibly be an interesting read. Moving on, the following that I will be focusing on next should go on how the three main characters of the film are portrayed for the better and worse. As I declared in the first part of this review series, I see this movie more as a Superman movie following Man of Steel as its sequel. So, I'll go over Henry Cavill's portrayal of Clark Kent and Superman first. Following Man of Steel, where we first saw his first day as Superman, Clark's characterization has matured from the greenhorn struggling like a noob playing Dark Souls for the first time to a more confident person in both sides of his life. Essentially, prior to seeing Kahina Ziri's interview on television, Clark had been acting like how you would have expected him to act as Superman and was confident in what he was doing. It was hearing Kahina Ziri's, well, false criticisms over the Nairobi incident where self-doubt enters his mind, and that is then escalated when he sees Wallace Keefe's arrest on television. That self-doubt is what many of the film's detractors have mistakenly read as brooding or angst, or just one person among them decided that is what it is, and the rest just agreed because Mankisi and Primeape do. Obviously, this prompted Clark to look into how his activities as Superman have been helping people, and while I still take umbrage over how he does not put any work on journalism, I can recognize Clark's journalistic integrity in wanting to write important stories about people suffering because of Batman's existence. And his pursuit of Batman in the way of the journalist, Clark ends up treating him as a video game side quests mini-boss before the main story sent him to the point where David Goyer left and Chris Terrio took over. I went over in part 3 how the failure to stop the Capitol bombing affected Clark and how he got over it by talking to the mental image of his father. That experience, along with his next confrontation with Batman, thanks to Luthor's actions, is made to reinforce his characterization in developing into the same Superman that the post-crisis version of Superman has been developed into between 1986 and 2011. Both versions' death and resurrection happened as early into their existence, and as such was meant to be the foundation of how far Clark would go as Superman to protect the humanity. It remains to be seen how similarly this goes down in Zack Snyder's Justice League when it comes out. Then in Batman's case, instead of starting over from the beginning like the Dark Knight trilogy did after the Schumacher movies, it was decided to skip over those parts of his career that the previous movies covered and carried over from where they left off. As I showcased in part 2, I mapped out how and where Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne is in his life, and in part 4 explained how his mentality has been damaged in his 20 years as Batman. However, in January I came across this tweet by Hawk of Krypton, who gave such a perfect way of detailing how Bruce Wayne and Batman are portrayed in the film that I had to ask for permission to use it in this video. So, Hawk of Krypton, if you're watching, this one is for you, and your observation is spot on with this line from Alfred.
The Bat interrogated 6 people and came away with nothing. It was Bruce Wayne that got the information.
Or, in other words, the character is at his best when he is Bruce Wayne, and at his worst when Batman. In Ben Affleck's first scene, Bruce Wayne is presented at his most heroic. He ran through an alien war zone to save his employees, putting their safety above his own life, helped an injured one, helped a confused girl get back to her class, saves another one from debris, and softly confronts her after she lost her mom, and sets up a fund for the victims of the event. Later in the film, Bruce is shown helping a man win an underground fight despite winning nothing from it, gives a stranger information she held dear but couldn't retrieve, mourns the loss of innocent life, and rationalizes his crusade against Superman as a way to potentially save the entire planet. In these scenes, Bruce is shown either helping people or mourning those he couldn't help, while in contrast, Batman is shown as Bruce at his worst. In Batman's first scene, he is brutalizing Cesar Santos for being a sex trafficker while leaving the victims to be rescued by the police. The Batmobile chase scene showed him destroying vehicles with connive smirks in them, and it is shown that he sent multiple security guards to hospital when he stole kryptonite from LexCorp. Then in the one-sided fight scene against Clark, Batman refused to listen to him and pummels all kinds of attacks at Clark while insulting him before trying to commit murder. Batman is fighting those he perceives as bad guys and ends up representing the very source of violence that he set out to stop when he started out, instead of saving others from it. As the blind man tells Clark in his first trip to Gotham,
There's a new kind of mean in him.
the Black Zero event changed Batman so that his violence is not shown helping or saving anyone, until he promises to Clark that
I make you a promise. Martha won't die tonight.
when Superman manages to get through to Batman and Lois helps him explain what the situation is, Batman begins to change back to what he was before Black Zero. By deciding not to kill Superman, going to rescue Ma Kent and helping take down the Doomsday Clone, Batman returns to what he originally swore to be, a protector of innocence. With Superman's sacrifice helping him realize his true nature, Bruce's trauma driving Batman forward is returned to what it was when his parents died and what his original mission as Batman was then. He is once again the hero who wishes he never had to exist, trying to change the world for the better, where his younger version would not become a victim. That is what motivates him to form the Justice League in Superman's honor and to correct his mistake in first seeing Superman as an inhumane alien and wanting to kill him because of that. The film portrays Bruce at his best when he is saving people, comforting children, and mourning for innocent lives, while Batman is at his worst when being recklessly violent and unnecessarily harming others. Hawk of Krypton also brought up that previous iterations of Batman have been morally protected by the writers to only be the one who saves and helps people instead of being the one who is also helped or rescued. Han compared this to the DC Animated Universe version of Batman with the scene in Epilogue with Ace. And whenever the DC AU had a quote Batman gone dark kind of moment or a character, it was never Bruce himself, but rather it was the Phantasm, the Justice Lord Batman, and I'm just going to throw the Hardak robot clone in there too. That is how Ben Affleck's portrayal of Bruce Wayne and Batman is best described in a nutshell. Once again, thank you, Hawk of Krypton, for sharing this insight with me and so many others who watched this video. And I'll get to the Dick Grayson being the dead Robin in a bit. Before that, however, I'm going to go over Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor and say that the main problem we all should have focused on was that he got bald way too late into the film. The Birthright inspiration was a comic book accurate for the character's introduction, but neither in Birthright or Secret Origin did Luthor keep his auburn locks past his earliest appearances and was the same bold mad scientist in both latter halves of those comic book storylines. If he had been made to lose his hair at an earlier part of the movie, once again during the Capitol bombing, and was shown interacting with Superman in his bolder appearance, then the final impression of Jesse Eisenberg's performance as Lex Luthor would have been better received. At least to the extent when talking about him on social media, they would have used better images of him. That is my only legitimate problem and criticism over Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor and how his character was written. Otherwise, there was very little to praise or complain, as I suspect most of the hate on him came from not liking the actor cast into the role, after not being able to understand what his bad guy plan was, which was, by the way, explained pretty well in Twin Perfect's video going over Lex Luthor's portrayal, where they made this flowchart. And Luthor having files on the Justice League members matches how John Byrne wrote Luthor in the late 80s in figuring out Superman's human identity as Clark Kent, but ignoring it because of his ego, with them suggesting to be other possible candidates that Luthor could have used to send against Superman. Having Wonder Woman's photograph from the 1917 could have been used as a blackmail material to force her to go against Clark, for example. One more thing I want to point out as a positive in the film is the finite source of kryptonite. In previous forms of Superman media, there has always been an almost endless source of kryptonite that either grows out of trees or is sold for everyone to buy from a random street vendor.
Hey, what can I get you? Oh, just a little of the good stuff. Coming right up. So here is your
Kryptonite. So instead of that, David Goyer and Chris Terrio wrote into the film that the only finite amount of kryptonite exists in the DCEU, created during the Black Zero event in both Metropolis and at the Indian Ocean. This made kryptonite a less freely available resource to be used as your anti-Superman weapon, and its usage against Superman is more, well, different than the previous X times that kryptonite has been used. And now to the final topic of the before the end. After the catastrophe that was Joss Whedon's Justice League movie, which led to the hashtag release the Snyder Cut movement demanding Zack Snyder's Justice League to be released, but before Zack Snyder announced it was coming to HBO Max, a Warner Bros. Animator and storyboard artist, Jay Oliva, revealed something about what he had been working on with Snyder. And my understanding of it is that the movie universe started with Man of Steel was never supposed to grow into the mess we are stuck with now. According to Jay Oliva, Zack Snyder had only planned to make 5 movies centering around Superman, going as following: Man of Steel, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, Justice League Part 1, Part 2 and 3, and that's it! As I shared my view on how Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice would have rather been named as Man of Steel 2, yes, Snyder's movies would have been more Superman centric, and the other characters were only side characters. That means that David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie, Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman movie, and James Wan's Aquaman movie, as well as Ben Affleck's The Batman movie and the Flash and Cyborg films, were meant to be one-off tie-in side story movies. Because those Justice League members were always meant to be side characters in Superman's 5-movie story arc. And because of their side character status, their character arcs had to be limited, which is why Batman was limited to having had just one Robin, aka Dick Grayson, who was the one who ended up getting the Jason Todd treatment from the Joker. As I said before in part 4, I am not happy about this change. But with the context and explanation that this movie universe would have ended with a legitimate and deserved reboot after Snyder's 5th film, I can understand why this change was made. And looking at this movie release slate from 2014, if Zack Snyder's 5-movie plan had been allowed to go on, his final movie would have come out already by now, with DC and Warner Bros. Ready to reboot it with a more fulfilling and deserved movie universe where all of Batman's Robins likely existed and Jimmy Olsen was not reduced to an alias used by the Central Intelligence Agency or
Son of a bitch!
But as this video still has Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice in its title, what is my unbiased view of it without taking sides with the negative Snyder haters or the more positive Snyder worshippers? It is not an underrated masterpiece, or the worst movie ever made. Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is the first piece of live action cinema where the two title characters are brought to meet each other for the first time, and it is handled so that their characters actually come out of it as better people than they were before meeting each other. Sure, the film's plot is filled with a bunch of problems that I listed earlier, but most of them are easily fixed with your headcanon that they are not exactly plot breaking, while others make me wish that Chris Terrio had worked with a proofreader to help him rewrite and fix them. That is how I would call this film. A visual spectacle with a flawed story. As it is a chapter 2 of a 5-movie arc, it does end up needing the other movies to look better, and a current consensus about franchise movies done lately is that they should be done to stand on their own without needing other films to support them. Good thing with this movie is that it is still in the story's earlier stages, and going forward only needs to explain the nightmare scene and Superman's resurrection in its sequel. Now that the review is over, I'm going to thank everyone who went through this journey with me silently and subscribe to my small channel. I hope you continue to do so with my future videos when I get new ideas on what to make after this. Anyway, until then, like the video, comment your thoughts below, share the video, subscribe, and ding the bell to know what I might be doing next. And may your heart be your guiding key.